Hi there, and welcome to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
Hey, I'm Eric Stromer.
And we love to improve your home and improve your life. And, you know, we love to do things easily. I mean, insanely easily. And I think a lot of times when the weekend comes and we want to do something to improve the space we call home, we worry that it's, well, not only worry, we know that it just might take too much time.
Yeah, I think that's, with a busy, crazy schedule, kids at home from school, that whole deal. What do you do when you don't? Well, you play music, for crying out loud. You play a great song and you take a nap. That's what you do.
So we have some projects for you that are we have at least a couple dozen that are going to take you basically an hour or less, which we love.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So the first one is, obviously, a fresh coat of paint.
Fresh coat of paint is so simple to do. It'll transform the look and feel of the room, the ambiance in that space. And it can be done with, a quart of your favorite color, and you just do one accent wall.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you're done, it's been maybe 2 hours at the most, and guess what? You come home and you feel like you're completely reinvigorated because you've chosen some new color in an otherwise drab space that before looked like, well, a dingy frat house.
I think, and I love the idea of just starting with just one area. Maybe it's just the ceiling, or maybe it's just a wall or a fraction of a wall.
Yeah.
Right?
I like in the bedroom the anchor wall where the bed is. I think it always kind of is a beautiful thing to do where you have maybe a little more deep, inviting, depthful color. Say your room's already sort of like just a taupe standard
very
issue
neutral.
Color, very neutral. You could really afford to do anything you could imagine.
Purple,
blue, dark dark tomato color, something to kind of just give that room more of a feel of cozy intimacy. And then you don't have to get into moving the furniture all around and do the whole room. You can just pull the bed out from the wall, take the end tables out, put a piece of blue tape along the carpeting, and then then a tarp over that, and then just go ahead and cut it in first with a 2.5-inch angle sash brush, which I love. Hold it like a pencil. Don't just hold the handle. Hold the whole thing like a pencil, and then cut the whole wall in first, and then go ahead and roll it out. And 2 hours later, your kid comes and goes, "Is this a fancy hotel? What happened?"
And explain when you say blue tape. That's obviously that painter's tape that you see.
That's right. It's less adhesive. You can tape it right onto walls and then pull it off again, and it won't pull paint off, and it can sit there a little bit longer without disrupting the existing finish. It's great for masking off or striping, for keeping you from getting paint on windows or additional walls that you're trying to avoid. So the blue tape is really definitely the choice. And I like to get the wider roll that's about 2 inches wide. And generally that seems to be the one.
Yeah. And when you say cutting, too, explain, too, that's to basically have those sharp edges so that it doesn't look like I was in a hotel room the other day. And it really bugged me, and I know it must bug you, that I as I'm lying in bed, I look up and I can see where there are splashes of paint, very sloppy, that had fallen like from whatever they used to paint the ceiling, and it was kind of smeared onto one of the walls.
I'll tell you what they used. They used the drunken painter, because weren't you you were staying in a brewery that was transformed to a hotel?
Yeah.
It was just a bunch of drunk painters. That's what it was.
But I mean, it had such potential, and so we want to cut the wall so that it is nice and crisp and tight, and it looks like a professional did it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will use tape and tape off one corner of the wall, which is great if you're not experienced. It prevents you from making those little mistakes. As you get a little bit better, you can get into a thing where you go ahead and just you put the paint up on a point after you've. Here's how I do it. I put my brush into the paint, like say it's a 5-gallon bucket, and I do one quick snap of the wrist.
Ooh.
And that takes
That's almost
off,
like a dancer. That's like a...
It's like a flamenco dance. And it's very dramatic.
And do you have like a head snap?
I'd snap my head to the side and then flick my wrist. And what it does is it gets off just the right amount of paint but leaves enough on, so when you put your brush in your starting corner and you just slowly come down, you'll get about 1.5 feet before you have to tune your stroke again for the next one. So it's just the paint is literally falling down the wall as you're pulling the brush down toward the floor.
But not excessively.
But not excessively. Like all goopy. You're going slowly, right? It's just imagine like a very slow Martha Graham dance move. Very slow. As long as we're in the dance room, I'll stick with those references. And it just gives you that real nice, the easy line as you go down the wall, and you're using gravity to assist you. So then you go back to the paint, you dunk it in, don't go all the way up to where the metal meets the bristle, just go about halfway down the bristle. dunk it in, flick it again with your wrist, come back to that same spot, maybe 2 inches into the existing paint you just put on, and then kind of let it fall down the wall again very slowly and accurately. And if you do get paint on the other wall, just have a nice bucket of water with a sponge or a rag, and then you can go back and wipe that excess off with your finger, put it in the water, rinse your finger off, and then come back with the wet rag that's wrung out and get it off the pre-existing painted wall. And I think you'll be fine. And you'll find that it's much easier and much faster to tape, to avoid the taping, and just go ahead and try and do it freehand.
Okay.
So have the courage. I think you can
Love
do
it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about a few others. I mean, I think that changing the faucet in your kitchen or in your bathroom is another really quick thing that we could do that gives your space a facelift.
Yeah, so when, a lot of times these faucets that you buy that are less expensive, that we call them builder series faucets, where it's going to be sort of the medium to low end version of a fancy faucet. It looks great, but in operation, probably about 2 years into it, it's going to start leaking and breaking down on you. So at that point, in my opinion, it's not even worth replacing parts. And a lot of times you can't even replace the parts because they're sealed, right? So in my opinion, it's better to just replace it and start over with a new faucet.
Do you want us to buy a cheap faucet?
No, I want you to, I would prefer that you spend a little more money and get a good quality, solid brass component, no plastic, because that's where you get into trouble. But that's a little bit more money. But for people who are budget conscious, if the thing's leaking and you call a plumber in to fix a bad faucet, you might as well just get another medium-priced faucet and start over.
Because it could cost you $100 for the plumber to come.
Exactly. So to do that, you have to replace the faucet out. All you have to do is turn the water off at the angle stops, which are those two knobs underneath the sink that turn the hoses off.
Yeah.
Remember this, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. That's how it works in plumbing. So if you turn right all the way, that's shutting off the water. Lefty-loosey is opening the water. We'll continue when we come back.
Okay. And you have a little wrench.
I know this is riveting, and I can even provide a dance analogy.
Well, I was going to say, when it's the plumber's song, it's the rap, the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey rap.
That's right.
Eric Stromer, Cindy Doe, we love to improve your home and improve your life, and we've got more really quick and easy. I mean, we're talking like an hour or less
That's
solutions
an hour and a half.
to make your place better,
That's
right?
it.
You're listening to Home Wizards. So if you have a leaky faucet, or you're just staring at this faucet that's in your kitchen right now and you're going, God, it looks so old school. I really want to change it. Eric is telling us how we can do this quickly and inexpensively, hopefully, and in less than an hour or so, right?
Yeah, and inexpensively is the key, because
not too
if you're doing it on your own, you're not paying the plumber, which is going to ding you. He's going to ding you, he or she will ding you about $150, $200 for this. Right?
So we're going to get a good enough faucet that's not like a $10 faucet, but it'll be maybe less than $100.
And we're talking about replacing this because maybe it's leaking on you. It's an original builder series faucet that's not that high quality. It's not solid brass.
And it may not be saving water. It doesn't have the aerator.
And it might just not be the right size. Sometimes, you don't get a tall enough faucet in a kitchen where you can fill pots. That's kind of my pet
like
peeve.
Pasta.
And you got to kind of do this weird limbo thing with your pot.
You want the gooseneck thing.
You want the gooseneck to get up over the pot.
By the way, that's Eric Stromer, and I'm Cindy Dole, and this is Home Wizards. But take it away. You were giving us some great pointers on faucet shopping and then how to put it in.
Yeah, so the builder series, less expensive versions of these faucets are definitely not going to save you in the long run, because they'll probably break down on you, and then at that point it's worth replacing. So to do that, you're going to be spending quite a bit of time underneath the sink on the weekend. So get comfortable with the idea of taking everything out from under the sink, turning off the angle stops where the hoses come from the wall and go up to the faucet itself.
And it's righty-tighty.
Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Those are the terms for plumbing to kind of know when you're turning water off versus turning it on. So left is on, right is tighty, closing, right?
Okay.
And so keep in mind, you're going to be putting a towel underneath the faucet on the floor of the base of the cabinet, and you're going to literally be laying on your back with your head all the way to the back wall of the cabinet, looking straight up underneath the sink, okay? You may want to think about wearing safety glasses, because sometimes water or debris can drip down into your eyes and make you crazy. And that the idea of like water from some unknown thing coming into your mouth or eyes makes me really nervous. So I just always like to have safety glasses on. So then and there's no reason to be nervous. It's just my own pet peeve. It makes me crazy. But
and it also sounds claustrophobic.
It's a little claustrophobic, and you have to have a flashlight that's either angled up or one of those headlamps that you can get at the camping stores, which are by the way, awesome for grilling. If you haven't bought one of these yet, when you're grilling,
and for Halloween trick or treating,
pretty much for everything. I just wear it around during the day in the house. I just love the thing.
And I think when you're under the sink, you could also do some leg lifts to kind of tighten your abdomen.
You can get the abs going if you need to. You bet. So what you're doing is you're spending your whole time reaching your hands up from laying on your back position. So all of the movement and adjustments are going to take place in that position. So you want to be comfortable with your head in the right position and hands free with a light, so you don't have to keep holding the light and balancing tools in your hand. So it's going to require a wrench or a pair of channel locks, which are the blue handle pliers that are used for plumbing, and those can expand big enough to undo pretty much anything in plumbing, right? So the water's off. You take out the ring that holds the faucet underneath. It's sort of a compression fitting, so on the top it sits on the counter. Then there's the stone or the tile, and then on the bottom there's a nut that tightens those two things together to hold it solid. So when you unscrew that little nut on the bottom, then the faucet has the ability to come out, right?
So it doesn't sound that hard. It's
just a lot of messing around with your body positions, and you have to be patient and not feel nervous about being in that small
And don't
space.
knock your head. That could, like, as you're getting out.
I've done that. I've done all of it. You bet. So make sure that your kids aren't there like throwing stuff on your stomach while
tickling
you're
your
laying there,
feet,
tickling your feet, the whole thing. So anyway, that's something that you may or may not want to tackle, but it is doable, and I suggest that you give it a shot. Also, you're going to have to unscrew the hoses at the angle stops. And also at the faucet, you may need to replace them with new ones, or they're fine. It kind of depends on if you're seeing water leakage or not.
And should you have maybe a bucket to do the final test, like you've installed it?
You want to definitely have a bucket so that when you
turn it on.
If there's any leaking, that'll catch on the bottom basin.
Good.
So that's one that's maybe a little more advanced, but it's worth a try.
What about the dryer ducts? This is something that we all know to change the little lint filter that's in the front of your dryer every time you do a load of laundry in the dryer itself, right? And you get all that little fluffy stuff out of there.
But
behind the dryer is where it really collects.
Well, yeah, and the hose, the venting hose especially. So if your clothing isn't drying effectively, chances are pretty good that the tip-off is that there's too much lint either in the filter or in that hose.
Duct.
And in that duct, if there are a lot of angles and turns to it before it goes outside, chances are even better that it's going to be collecting on all those turn corners.
Like that hose that's always kind of bent.
That's exactly
the garden
right.
hose.
Right. And so what happens is that that thing gets clogged up. It's also a fire hazard if there's too much in there. So to fix that, you want to take off the grate, either outside if you can, and then get a vacuum cleaner hose down into the tube and just push it down as far as you can and try and suck out all the lint if you can.
So we have to first pull the dryer away from the wall, don't we? Like, what if we...
Well, that's what I was saying. If you go from the outside of the house, you may not have to disrupt
outside the house.
Yes, where it comes out, you can pull that cap off, which is usually a vent with little louver doors that keep rodents from running into it.
See, ours is under the house. Ours is in the crawl space.
Then in your case, you're going to want to pull out the dryer, and then you got to climb behind the dryer, and then there's, again, a compression fitting around that hose with a screwdriver. You unscrew that, pull the hose out, straighten it. Either A, reach your hand down in there with a rag and start pulling stuff up, or B, put your vacuum cleaner hose down that and try and suck out as much of the lint as possible, and then you'll be amazed at how much more efficient the dryer is. Now, if that hose, sometimes they make them out of plastic and there are tears in it, get rid of it and get a new one. The hoses are maybe $10.
They're so flimsy anyway, right?
So get a new one. Try and put as few kinks in it and turns as you can. And again, you'll find that the dryer works much more efficiently.
And then for those folks who have, as you say, that little thing outside the house.
Yes.
So to complete that process, you'd start there and you go...
You mean to put the hose back from the dryer, then connecting it to the external hole that goes outside. There'll be a compression fitting there as well, generally.
Okay.
A lot of times that hose just sits there free-floating and doesn't have enough of a seal, and that's when you can get rodents coming into your home from those openings. So you want to make sure that has a nice clean seal that has the ability to protect the elements from the outside to the inside of the house.
You know those metal grates that you have that are just before the crawl space, whatever you call that little square rectangular piece. We had a cable guy come to adjust our...
And he's still there.
He's still there.
Trapped down there.
And he did a terrible job, but he put the cables behind that grate. So now the grate doesn't close all the way. He just kind of rammed it.
Sure.
So there was it was like all scrunched up, and there's a perfect opening for like a family of rodents to find their way into our crawl
space. And if you don't inspect a lot of these service call guys and gals work, they leave and it's lazy and they don't want to do it.
And you wouldn't see that till later. Like months went by and I happened to be going around the back of the house. I'm like, what the heck is that?
I know.
Jeez.
It makes me crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, how about our electrical? I mean, this is something, I'm not talking about you changing your electrical, but just taking a survey of all of your outlets around the house.
Sure.
Because they might be due for changing them, the covers and the wall and power strip outlets themselves.
That's right. So think about, especially if you have young kids under 4, for example, you definitely want to childproof those plugs by buying the little inserts. They sell kits now at all the big box stores where you can literally just plug in these plastic plugs with 2 tongs that come out and go right into the plug. That keeps kids from putting keys in them, which I actually did when I was a kid.
You put your key in there?
I put my mom's key in, and then what happens? Here's
That's why your hair is so fluffy.
The beauty of DNA. My son did the same thing when he was 3, so it was sort of like a rite of passage.
And why did you do that?
Because we're idiots.
You're MacGyver. You just wanted to see how you...
I just want to see what happens when you do
how did that feel? Did that feel pretty good?
It didn't feel so good. No, it just scares the heck out of you. But I didn't do it again. All right.
So for general safety, what would you recommend in terms of checking for overloaded circuits?
You just want to follow any cords that you have that go from, devices into the wall. Just run your hand along with it, and it's not a bad idea to take a little bit of pledge and a rag whenever you do this and just kind of run it along the cord as you're checking to get rid of all the dust, because electricity and the electromagnetic static attracts a ton of dust. So when you pull desks, dressers, beds away, you'll generally find a ton of dust right around the electrical stuff. So, every couple of months, pull stuff back, look at the cord, make sure there's no fraying on it. If you've got old lamp cords that are thin and flimsy and the plastic or cloth
like antique lamps,
worn away, then it's going to be a fire hazard.
So replace those?
Replace those or tape them and wrap them with electrical tape if there's an issue where it's starting to go on you, but you don't have the time to replace the cord, or get a new device itself. Also, circuit breakers, you definitely want to have plug-in circuit breakers where if there's an electrical storm or a power surge, now it's been so hot in LA, the power gets all wacky and, it goes and comes back on again. That can kind of destroy some of the electrical devices. So if there's some kind of separation between where the power comes out of the wall and goes into your unit by having a power strip that has a circuit breaker, you're in better shape.
All right. Well, we have some more ideas for you that are basically going to not only be some good improvement ideas, but they're incredibly easy and fast, like less than an hour of time. Eric Stormer, Cindy Dole, you're listening to Home Wizards, where we love to improve your home and improve your life. You're listening to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
Hey, I'm Eric Stromer.
And we're kind of going through a bunch of really quick and dirty, well, not necessarily dirty, but easy things.
You get dirty in some
You might get dirty things to do to kind of fix up your place. So we've talked about changing the kitchen faucet. Yeah. Making sure that we've cleaned the air ducts behind the dryer. We've painted a wall. But now what about taking things outside? And we've also checked all of our electric outlets, but let's do a garden bed.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you can do an 8x8 square bed in less than an hour. All you have to use are 8-foot sections, obviously, to create basically a big box on the lawn. Mm-hmm. And some pressure-treated lumber, and you're going to need some screws and some landscape adhesive, and that's basically it. And maybe some weed screen underneath so that the weeds don't poke up if you're putting it on the lawn. Right?
Sure.
And then, a couple bags of dirt to fill the thing up. But anyway, when you construct one of these raised flower beds, you can use 2x8 material with 2 different rows of it. So it's about 16 inches high, ultimately, when you're done. And you're basically just screwing or nailing these corners together. It almost looks like one of those old waterbed frames that'll just be sitting on the lawn or the area that you want to allocate to a raised garden bed. The thing I love about the raised beds, you can get fresh, brand new organic soil that has no influence with the existing soil around. Like, for example, if you've got very loamy soil, you don't have to really amend anything. You're just dumping a bunch of bags into this new box that you've created. filling it up and then putting your favorite plants in. And the height of it is so great because you can be on your knees and you're not really bending over quite so far. And it just makes for a lovely experience when you have to prune your plants or pick your fruits or vegetables. It's much easier on the body to be in that position.
So how tall is it? About maybe
about 16 inches if you're using 2x8 stacked up.
That's great.
That's perfect, right?
That's perfect. And the other solution, if you don't even want to go the wood route, you've seen these concrete block flower beds or veggie beds where you basically go baby and you just make a whole square.
Yeah.
And you fill it, and then inside the blocks themselves you put the soil and the tomato
that's great.
plant
So you
or whatever.
have multiple different rows and layers and heights of things.
Yeah.
And I also like it too because I feel like it keeps some of the pests at bay, when you're insulating and having a little bit of a height difference. Also, if you want to, really get fancy, I had some fruit trees that I put in about 2 years ago, and the darn squirrels
and the birds
got all my peaches.
Jeez.
Right? And it's because I didn't net them.
Oh.
Next year I'm going to net them, and I'll be fine. But my point is if you put 4x4 posts that are running 8 foot tall also off your framing so that you're creating what almost looks like a canopy bed.
To discourage
then you can completely put around the outside of that or
a netting of some kind.
Netting or some chicken wire or something to keep the larger predators from your, deer is a problem some places.
We have deer. We almost have like a family of deer that are hanging out in our front driveway.
Bambi, Uncle Don, and Jenny.
They're all there because, they've been, in all the urban areas, they're moving into the suburbs, right? And they are mowing on our agave.
Yeah, they are.
It's just nuts.
What do you do?
You can't. You surrender to it because they're coming in. They're hungry.
I know, they're coming in.
Yeah, we got a buck. You know what I mean?
And I'll tell you, the more development that happens, the more we're going to get the deer and the antelope playing in our yard, right? Eating all our food.
How about doing something with pressure? I know you love them.
Oh, you're
pressure washers.
This is It's my favorite thing.
And it's such easy satisfaction. It's kind of like that feeling when you get your car washed, and you go, wow, it's shiny. I feel like I'm in a new car.
Especially in the summer months when it's so hot and your kids can be out there with you. Your significant other, if he or she are very dirty, you can just spray them down if you want as well. Put a bathing suit on. Why not clean you up a little bit,
There it is.
Right? But the pressure washer, if you put the right tip on for masonry especially, you would use the most intense tip. You will not believe the amount of grime that'll come off of the bricks.
Like a stained concrete driveway, really?
Yes.
Should you put something on it first? Like I hear if you put Coke on a stained...
To break up some oil and stuff?
Yeah.
That works pretty well. They also sell pressure washer soaps that kind of work, and degreasers and things like that for all different applications. TSP, you could put white vinegar on, let it sit for a minute.
Oh, there you go with your vinegar.
I know. You keep the secret to all masonry is keep everything as wet as possible all the time when the solutions that you're putting on to use to degrease are there. You don't want any of it to dry out. You want to keep it puddled as long as you can, however long the product description says to leave it on before you rinse it off. Then take your pressure washer with the most extreme tip that's possible. Be careful because that could hurt you if you hit yourself with that kind of spray. And you just start hitting it, and you can get graffiti off, you can get grease, you can get sap stains, whatever you can imagine off of your driveway, your front stairs, your porch, your brick patio, whatever. Be careful, however, with wood decking because the pressure can kind of mess up the grain of the wood.
So only like for stone, masonry things.
Stone, masonry, concrete, tile, all that stuff. Even now, the other thing with a pressure washer, you get two for one here. You rent the pressure washer from the big box store. You bring it home. You do your house first with a less intense pressure, and then you will not believe. You may not have to paint the house after you wash the house done. You're not going to believe the difference. All the grime comes down. Clean the gutters out first, otherwise all that junk's going to start running down the side of the house. You're going to get 2 for 1 for your money. You probably end up having the thing for a day and a half. You wash the car with it. You can wash the dog before you're done. The whole neighborhood's going to be cleaner as a result.
Well, the neighbors might say, "While you're at it, can you come over here
and wash me? I'm dirty." Sure.
So that's a great thing. That could be if you're going to do both the house and the hardscapes. That's definitely could be a weekend project.
And make sure you get familiar with the 2 or 3 different tips that are provided.
And that comes with what you rent.
Comes with what you rent.
Is it like in a little bag, and you have like the little?
Sometimes it's in a bag. Sometimes it sits just in a little cradle area on the device itself. I think they're about $65 a day at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you're going to rent
and
from.
it comes with the tips, and just go with the bigger tip for the wood and the tiny tip.
The more intense tip, you're right. It's a little bit smaller. The high pressure ones are a tiny bit smaller. They're color coded.
Yeah.
I think the red is the highest pressure.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Give it a shot. That's a great thing to do.
How about changing the hardware? And this is something you can do if you are renting.
Oh, this is
or
so good.
you are, paying a mortgage or wherever you're living. I mean, the whole idea of just getting new cabinet pulls and bling inside your home is great.
And if you are renting and you're putting new cabinet pulls on, just make sure you save all the old ones
like
and
put
them in a baggie and say old ones when I move out.
And maybe put it in the drawer in the back.
Put it in the drawer in the back, hang on to it, put the new ones in, and you'll be amazed. You may not even have to paint the cabinetry. Just the new handles and pulls are going to make a world of difference. Keep in mind, you're going to want to match the whole configuration of your old pulls. And you may want to just recycle the screws from the old pulls and use those because they'll already be pre-cut to the size that you need.
That's a smart idea.
For the thickness of the door.
Maybe will you take that screw with you when you're shopping for the pulls?
I would take the screw with you, and keep in mind there may be different lengths of screws depending on if you're doing a drawer or a cabinet.
Like they're really long or they're really short.
There you go.
And what about using like a template to make sure that that the drill holes are in the same spot?
Yeah,
each time.
They're pretty standard in terms of the width of a two screw handle versus a single. So obviously if you only have one hole or one knob, you're not going to put a pull with two screws, otherwise you have to drill through the drawer, and that's going to impede your landlord's respect for you giving you your deposit back.
Right.
Which is when you have to go to a whole nother level.
Well, you could always use wood glue, couldn't you? Or wood.
You could probably patch it and do a quick touch up, but it's going to be a little noticeable. So just do what I said. Keep the old ones. Replace them with new ones, use the existing screws, and you're good.
Yeah, all right. How about weather stripping? I mean, this is something that's going to, especially with the summer heat and then coming up soon, the fall and the winter, it'll basically help our air conditioning and our furnace work better.
Makes a huge difference. Pretty easy to do if you just get the directions and understand that as long as the window or anything that's going to receive the weather stripping is clean, you've degreased it with TSP and water, it's going to cut all the grease, and then the adhesive has a chance to really stick. You want to make sure it's degreased and then dry thoroughly, then put the weather stripping on, and it'll stick. Because a lot of times that stuff is a problem because people just try and stick it on dirty windows or doors.
And it's not going to stick.
It's not going to grip, right?
And the TSP, you get that anywhere.
Any store, it's trisodium phosphate, and you put it in water and you mix it together with 3-to-1 solution, 3 water, 1 TSP.
Is that dangerous to deal with?
It's not if you wear gloves, maybe some eye protection. It's so diluted that it's not going to really hurt you, but boy, does it work. It gets grime off of everything in your life, so make sure you get that stuff.
So the weather stripping has kind of a self-adhesive thing. You probably pull off a sticker on the back, right?
And you want to have scissors or a utility knife to cut it to really specific lengths.
Because you probably have a longer one than you need,
That's right. And if you cut it too short and there's a big gap still, then you're defeating the whole purpose of it.
That's lame. It's not going to weather strip
and you don't want to interfere with the mechanics of the window or door, so make sure that it's operable. You're not just plugging up where you need the thing to slide back and forth. It's only the areas where the window's closed that you can feel or see air coming through.
And is weather stripping always the same kind of width or height?
Nope, they sell in all different sizes. Yeah, so there's a lot to do.
You got to measure.
And they sell kits that have different variable sizes. So get something that's going to work for your particular application.
See, now it almost sounds like it's as complicated as shopping for light bulbs, which have you noticed?
It kind of is. Yeah,
you got to have the right.
You just have to, pay attention.
Take the old one with you, maybe. All right, we have some more ideas, like even as simple as replacing your furnace filter. I know it doesn't sound very sexy, but these are things that are going to help you. They're insanely quick to improve your home and improve your life. Absolutely. Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole, you're listening to Home Wizards. Welcome back. You're listening to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
And I'm Eric Stromer.
And, replacing a filter doesn't sound like that's something that I would go, wow, that's exciting. I can't wait.
I know.
What are you going to do this weekend? I'm going to replace a filter.
I know, but then you know what you're going to do? You're going to lay back and you're going to feel the cool, clean air coming through that air conditioning system because why? It's unimpeded by dirt and grime and pollen and all sorts of dander and pet hair and all the other things that the filter picks up. And I almost run out of breath because I'm so emphatic and excited about this.
Who cares about arts and crafts and decorating and painting and gardening? It's furnace filters.
It's furnace filters. Thank you. The sexiest thing on the planet. But seriously, it does really make a huge difference. So imagine if you had, a huge sweater bundled up and it was on your mouth and nose. It's difficult to breathe, right? You want the unimpeded airflow coming in and out of that unit. And the best way to do that is to change the filter. And I guarantee you, your air conditioning and heating system will last 30-40% longer, and you'll have more efficient, better quality air interior in your home.
Cool air or hot air later.
That's right.
And would you say that every 3 months is a good ballpark,
even more sometimes in the summer and the fall when
if you have pets,
and pollen and all that stuff. Yep. So just good way to check it. The air intake area in your home for that system is going to be a big grate somewhere in your home. It'll sometimes be in a foyer or wherever it is. You'll see that grate on the wall or the ceiling. Take that down, slide it open, unscrew it, whatever you have to do to get it open. Look up, and if there's a bunch of hair and dander and grime in there, then replace it. Take that one to the store with you so you can get the exact same size, and you'll be amazed how the difference is.
And I would also encourage you to remind yourself by creating a Google Calendar. And make it a home improvement calendar, and every 2 months it'll email you and it'll say, guess what? This is the
filter
weekend
time
to change the filter.
And then you and your loved one can go and have an exciting time purchasing a new one at the big box
And then you
store.
can go have a movie night.
Why
You know
not?
what I mean? You reward
and take
yourself.
the filter with you. Just have it between. Get a seat for it, for crying out loud. Just use it.
And while we're talking about sexy things, how about draining the water heater?
You are making me crazy
We're bringing
inside.
sexy back, right?
Yes, you are. I'll tell you why you want to do this, okay? The water heater, as a result of the heat in the tank, the sediment gets a little more intense. You're going to have stuff just settling to the bottom of the tank, especially if it's a little bit older. What that does is it, again, impedes the functionality of that heating device. So all you have to do is put a hose. There's a little out spigot like on your wall outside in your hose area. It's a little hose bib. You're going to screw a hose onto that and let that hose come out into the outside area.
So into the water heater itself.
Into the water heater itself. Put the hose right, attach it to it, make it nice and tight, and then go ahead and open that valve up. Remember what we learned before, righty-tighty is closed, lefty-loosey is open.
And have we turned the water heater off?
Yes, you turn the water heater off,
okay.
Yep, and then just let that water drain out.
And it just spits it out on its own?
It just comes out on its own. It drains. All you have to do is maybe 5 minutes. Not all the water, just the lower part of the tank.
Oh, really? Oh.
And then you're done. That's it. Just let it open, 5 minutes, boom, done.
And then it refills on its own?
Refills on its own, you're good to go. And it drains all that sediment out, and that's why you do that, and that's why that hose bib is there. And if you have any issues or concerns, or you're not sure how to find those areas that I'm talking about, if you have the manual still, take a look at that. If you don't, get the name of the water heater and the model number and just put it in the computer, and voila, you'll have a manual online.
Isn't it amazing how there's a manual?
Amazing.
There's a manual for everything online. Isn't that great?
It's so much more convenient, isn't it? Because I tell you, I don't have any of those manuals anymore. I always just look them up.
Yeah. What about the programmable thermostat? If we don't have that yet,
how can you go any higher?
Again, we're bringing sexy back.
Yes,
We've gone from all these things like changing the filter, draining our water heater, and now installing a programmable thermostat.
Programmable thermostat. Now, here's why you want one of these bad boys, because the old stuff is not maybe going to be as expansive and give you the ability to kind of really make adjustments to the heating and air conditioning
automatically
that are going to be automatic. You can get stuff with apps that you can do remotely now. You can simplify your life by having, sometimes these thermostats, the programmable thermostats, are a little too confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you have one that's too confusing and you just want something very simple. All you got to do is replace them out. It's just a couple
So how do we do that?
You undo the plate off the wall. It's usually just a screwdriver that you pry off or unscrew 2 screws.
And we've turned the power to
No, you don't even have to worry about the power. It's better if it's off, but you can just
don't. We're not going to electrocute
ourselves. Such a small amount of current. That's not going to be an issue.
So we're just going to unscrew that little.
Unscrew that plate, pull it off the wall. You're gonna see 2 wires that are attaching. Sometimes there are more, and if there are, use your cell phone, take a picture of the configuration of the already existing wiring as it goes to the one that's already on the wall.
Yeah.
You can reference that if for some reason you
At the
have to
hardware
put the
store?
old one back on.
Oh, I
No,
see.
when you get the new one, you
okay.
bring it home, take a picture of the configuration of the wiring in
Gotcha.
the old one, take that off, and then match it if you need to with the same color coding that'll probably be on the back of the new thermostat.
And is it?
It's just screws that you undo
Sure.
or little things that you press a button and put the wire end into and then let the button go. It's that simple.
And we're
then
not
you
going to
put it back
electrocute
on.
ourselves.
No, you're not.
And will any thermostat work in our existing hole? Like, are some going to be wider?
Some may be bigger and some may be smaller. If it's smaller, then you're going to have a little touch-up paint and go around where they probably the drunken painter probably
little
didn't
spackling.
do the right thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're going to have to touch up that paint. Generally, though, you're going to have something that's the same size. You won't have to worry about that.
Okay. And you just put it in there.
Put it on, make it happen.